I totally believe he's trying to make our country better. He's doing the best he can with the prices and all of that. With tariffs, that was supposed to bring in a lot more money, which it has.
No, tariffs don't bring in money.
We have discussed this before, I know.
Who do you think pays tariffs?
We've talked about this.
Yes, and I want to see if it's stuck.
The country where it comes into and the country where it goes out of, too, both ways.
No?
The country where it comes into.
That's right. So American businesses are paying the tariffs.
Who pays tariffs, Mr. Secretary? No. Answer the questions I asked, please. I only have 5 minutes. Who pays tariffs?
Sorry? Well,
who pays tariffs?
Sorry,
Mr. Secretary, please.
Excuse me.
The question is very simply, who pays tariffs, Mr. Chairman? I'd like him to answer that question.
Well,
He wants to answer other questions.
well, Congressman, if the exporters, they dislike tariffs so much, why wouldn't they? If I think what you're trying to get me to say.
Did you remember the question? I'm not sure you did. Who pays tariffs?
It's a very complicated question.
So you mean to tell me something people supported is now eating them directly, not indirectly, I mean directly, in their bills, in their businesses, in their daily life. And now everybody's like, hold on, this is how it works. No. This conversation right here, this is about awareness. Before I break this down, I would like you to watch this clip people really reacted on. Don't just listen to me. See it for yourself, then come back because we are about to connect some real dots that people really reacted on. So without wasting much time, let's go and watch those clips and we'll come back for our full analysis.
Bad news, a major study just confirmed what many of us already knew, and it's that Americans are the ones who are paying for tariffs. Of course, a lot of people have said that it's not that way and that we're not paying, but the data shows that we are. And it's not even close. We're not talking about a 50-50 split where maybe people from abroad pay half and Americans pay half. No, Americans are bearing the full weight. People who are exporting to America have not lowered their prices in response to these tariffs. And so since they didn't lower their prices, the prices that Americans pay have gone up, which is not good news given that prices have been going up for a while. If you want to know how bad the split is between foreign exporters and Americans, it's this. 96% of the tariff increase goes to Americans, and those firms just bear a measly 4%. That's really nothing. So to the people who keep trying to deny in the face of all the evidence that Americans have been forced to pay higher prices thanks to the tariffs, you just made the D3 List, a podcast about dumb, desperate, and diabolical business decisions. For more great episodes of the D3 List, be sure to check out the d3list.substack.com.
Who pays tariffs, Mr. Secretary? No. Answer the questions I asked, please. I only have 5 minutes. Who pays tariffs?
Sorry? Well,
who pays tariffs?
Sorry,
Mr. Secretary, please.
Excuse me.
The question is very simply, who pays tariffs, Mr. Chairman? I'd like him to answer that question.
Well,
He wants to answer other questions.
well, Congressman, if the exporters, they dislike tariffs so much, why wouldn't they? If I think what you're trying to get me to say.
Did you remember the question? I'm not sure you did. Who pays tariffs?
It's a very complicated question.
Reclaiming my time. People pay tariffs, right? Reclaiming my time, Mr. Secretary. Reclaiming my time, Mr. Secretary. Reclaiming my time. You clearly aren't going to answer. I'm not going to waste my time having you go, Mr. Secretary, reclaiming, Mr. Chairman, I asked reclaiming my time. So I'll ask one more time. Who pays tariffs?
Sir, the history would show that it is a complicated mix of who pays the tariffs over various times.
So that's exactly the problem. If your answer, and you are a very educated person, you have a very impressive bio, cannot answer the question who pays tariffs because you won't answer that, and you say it's a complicated issue. It's not complicated. Consumers pay Trump's tariff tax. That's the reality.
So every time Trump says foreign countries are the ones who pay the tariff, it's not U.S. companies, he's lying.
First of all, I'm a businessman. I do gross CFO work around the world. I got hundreds of clients. I've been 30 years of building businesses.
Beautiful.
I can tell you firsthand the reason why many of my American companies can't get into foreign markets is because of tariff barriers.
Just because Trump always seems confused about this, Who is it that pays a tariff?
Well, the importer does.
The importer.
Right.
So every time Trump says foreign countries are the ones who pay the tariff, it's not U.S. companies, he's lying.
That's true. It's
He's lying.
importer,
Okay, good. It's weird for his whole economic policy to be based on a lie, but okay,
well, what does it do? So the tariff barriers create fair access. So it's all about fairdom. Americans, look around look around the room. You got some of the most talented people you will ever know in the world. We can give us a chance to compete. Level playing field, we will do the work. We will bring in the international business. Many of our jobs, with globalization, which I led, many of our jobs have gone international because of unfair tariff practices. Even when we had property in China, we had to hire a non-tariff barrier. We had to hire a Chinese spy to be in our telecom company, still in our secrets.
Okay, that's like a random anecdote. We got to go more. When you look at the impact, we've seen job growth slowing, we've seen GDP growth slowing, unemployment ticking up, employment getting worse. That's all an impact of him slapping these features. He's also tariffing, just quickly, Brazil, which we have a trade surplus with, so it's not the trade barrier reason. He's tariffing countries where it doesn't even make coherent sense because he's upset about this thing or that thing, but then we're the ones paying the consequences.
Let's be clear.
That's incoherent.
Let's be clear about impact. In the second quarter, GDP was at 3%, which is a normal range for us. Core inflation is at 2.1 to 2.4%, which is normal for us. Unemployment down at 4%.
You agree that we saw 48 consecutive months of job growth under Biden, and then Trump came in and we lost jobs for the first time in June, I think it was.
But we agree there's 4% unemployment, which is a.
Well, he was handed 4% unemployment. You can't give him credit for that. That's what Biden gave him.
I totally believe he's trying to make our country better. He's doing the best he can with the prices and all of that. With tariffs, that was supposed to bring in a lot more money, which it has.
No, tariffs don't bring in money.
We have discussed this before, I know.
Who do you think pays tariffs?
We've talked about this.
Yes, and I want to see if it's stuck.
The country where it comes into and the country where it goes out of, too, both ways.
No.
The country where it comes into.
That's right. So American businesses are paying the tariffs.
Right.
No foreign country is paying any tariffs. So that makes it harder for us, not better.
But then Trump put tariffs back on them, very high tariffs in some countries. China.
Trump can't force other countries to tariff themselves. If Trump puts a tariff on China, let's say, like I remember at one point he was doing like a 50% tariff on everything from China. I don't know if that's still in place or not. That means when an American company imports something from China, let's say they import something worth $100,000, that company at the port pays $50,000 on top of the $100,000 they owe to China.
Of that, yes. And then that makes prices increase. Yes.
Correct.
My fellow business owner came in just now and told me that she bought a bunch of silver. She sells jewelry. She bought a bunch of silver from Italy. And when the chains came in, UPS gave her a due on demand receipt for $2,300 tariff bill, which she had to pay in order to get the chains and delivered to her store. The story is just another reminder that China is not paying us tariffs, that Italy is not paying us tariffs, that American citizens are paying tariffs out of their own pocket, making the cost of the goods that they're buying go up 15, 20, 25, 50%. And those costs get passed on to the American consumer because that is how much it costs us to buy that good to have in our shop. Please, we need to push back against this narrative that other countries are paying us tariffs because that is not true. American citizens are paying tariffs out of our own pockets. That cost is then passed on to American consumers. So you're paying the tariffs. I'm paying the tariffs, you're paying the tariffs. No other country is paying the tariffs. Let's get it right.
Wait, what was that?
If you make a product in America, you don't actually have to pay the tariff.
Oh, well, that was a big lie, and he knows it's a big lie, and I can prove it using an easy example, this 100% American-made Florida tangerine right here. See, Charlie is counting on you not thinking about the fact that, yeah, if something's 100% made in America, that exact item won't get a tariff on it, but the entire supply chain and how it's made and all the materials and all of the other parts of it are going to go up in price, right? Let's take a look at this Florida tangerine, right? It grows on a tree, you pick it off. Why would there be a tax on on that? Why would there be a tariff on that? Well, what about the hoses for the irrigation to bring water to this tangerine? What about the tractor that's used as these are put into the back of a tractor and then driven off to the supply area so they can be packaged? What about the bags, the netting that these are put in, right? Is the netting made in America? You know, when you buy tangerines at the grocery store and they have that little plastic netting around it, 10%. It went up at least 10%, the price of just that netting alone. Where's the label made that goes on that netting, Charlie? And then let's go talk about the rest of the supply chain. The truck that took that you needed to go put this tangerine at the grocery store. Every single part of that truck, were they all made in America? Because now if anything goes wrong with that truck, that part's going to need to get replaced, which means maintenance costs are going to go up because that part goes up. So now they're going to go pass that on to the actual seller of the tangerine, who's going to pass it on to the buyer. Once we get to the grocery store itself, are all the light bulbs made in America, Charlie? All those fluorescent light bulbs hanging over everybody's head. What about the shelving units? What about the refrigeration units that are used in the produce section, Charlie? What about all of the other different parts of that building itself of the grocery store? Is there anything that might need to be replaced in the near future that isn't made in America? Because all of them went up at least 10%, because we put a 10% tariff on the entire world at the minimum, and at the maximum, it is percentages that we can't even imagine because they were imagined by ChatGPT as they were handed off to college students that you spent the last 4 years distracting from going into their classes while you stood out in a tent and yelled, "No, it's the wokes and DEI that are causing all these problems, Charlie." And Charlie, I'm even talking about something very simple like a tangerine that's grown right here in Florida. I'm not even getting into anything more complicated like a t-shirt, Charlie, because I know for a fact that your t-shirt costs went up because Turning Point USA, the organization that you run that is funneling billionaire money to make sure that these kids keep voting to lower taxes somewhere along the line and destroy the world and maybe conquer Greenland or some shit, that organization that you run uses Gildan t-shirts. And Gildan t-shirts, the blanks that you then get screen printed, those are not made here in America. Where are your t-shirts made, Charlie? They're made in Latin America and Southeast Asia. So your t-shirt costs have gone up. Your costs are going up. You don't buy American. You don't use American labor. You just use American voters. And then you turn to them and tell them the money's on the dresser and it's never there.
I was having a friendly debate the other day, and the topic came up of Trump's tariffs. And I asked them a very simple question: who pays Trump's tariffs? And they said, well, the other countries should pay them. And again, I asked them, okay, but who does pay them? And they're like, well, I think they should pay them. The other countries should pay them. And I was like, I didn't ask you who should pay them. I asked you who does pay them. And they would not answer that question. And I was like, a tariff is a tax on imports. You can only charge a tariff to your own people. We can't charge Canada for us to import goods. We cannot tax the citizens of another country. We pay those tariffs. But then they were like, well, it's not fair because all of these other countries have been charging us tariffs. And then it hit me. People are finally starting to realize that we pay our tariffs. But that doesn't mean that they are realizing that we don't pay the tariffs of other countries. They do. When other countries put tariffs on U.S. goods, that is tariffs that their citizens pay when they import our goods. Other countries cannot tax us. They can tax themselves. So when the Chinese government puts a tariff on American goods, that makes American goods more expensive for Chinese importers.
Trump has just told the World Economic Forum that if they want to sell products in the United States, they must be made in the United States, or you're going to have to pay a tariff. And everyone's going, oh, he's so patriotic. He's the best president we've ever had. Without real, they're all losing their shit over it and want to have their babies, but they don't realize the truth behind what this actually means. It just means that the cost of living in the States is going to go up. Again, why? Look at it from a manufacturer's point of view. Why would you manufacture something in the United States that you already have infrastructure elsewhere to manufacture? You're going to have to move your infrastructure. You're going to have to pay the American workforce to work for you. They're not cheap. So the price of the product is going to go up anyway if they manufacture in the States. So why not just keep manufacturing where they're manufacturing right now and pay the tariff? They don't mind paying the tariff. Why? Because the price of the tariff goes on the price of the product that they're selling. The American people are going to pay the tariff, but guess who gets to keep the tariff? The parasite class. The American government and the parasite class. They're making money while they're making the common people poorer. This is the age-old story. And when are you going to wake up and see it? that none of these elected leaders, I don't care who it is, whether they're red, whether they're blue, whether they're yellow, whether they're green, what political party they're a part of, they're all part of the same club, the parasitic class, and they will never, ever do anything for you. They only ever do things for themselves. It's time to wake up. Take back your power, take back your sovereignty, and create.
Well, on another point, taxes were really high under the Biden-Harris administration.
Yeah, that was Trump's tax policy, genius.
Then why-
You were
why
just
was it- why
saying
was-
that, oh my God, taxes were so high under Biden's administration. Well, that was Trump's tax policy.
Okay, so then why didn't Biden change it? Why didn't Biden make a new tax policy instead of
Because
keeping it
that's
there for all
Congress
the-
that determines that.
Okay, well, why didn't he suggest it or anything?
Biden did want to change the tax policy. He just can't do that himself. It relies on Congress
order.
and getting past the filibuster.
Can he sign an executive order or something?
Executive orders don't change that policy.
Why didn't he sign an executive order to make it to where he could legally make his own tax policies?
That's not how it works. You can't
Isn't
just
that gonna
change he can't just change the law and make it so that he can just affect that. That's constitutionally based. The Constitution grants those powers. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. You can't write an executive order that overrides the Constitution. It will just get shot down by the Supreme Court.
I feel like the past 24 hours has just been a complete nightmare. 104% on imports coming from China. 104%. And that means my small business that I put everything into is fucking done. I quit my corporate job about a year and a half ago to chase my dreams. I designed and launched a kids fitness brand, and it was going great. I paid fair wages. I built relationships. And then overnight, the cost just more than doubled. My margins were gone. You know, my business doesn't pay for a yacht or a private jet. It pays for our daughter's swim classes. It covers groceries. It helps with babysitters for date nights. This isn't just numbers on a policy sheet. It's real people, real jobs, real families. And now I'm back at square one. So wish me luck.
Trump's tariffs are going to make things more expensive. Let me learn you something real quick. When they put tariffs on imported goods, that gives an incentive to domestic companies to produce those goods. Increasing domestic production would bring down prices.
Increasing domestic production will not bring prices down. The cost to produce products in America is exponentially higher than it is in foreign countries. Why do you think companies all the time utilize foreign labor? If you replace borderline slave labor with people who need $15 an hour and health insurance, you have yourself a major cost problem.
I'll give you an example. If they put tariffs on foreign steel companies, then U.S. steel companies are going to start ramping up production. And then U.S. steel companies are going to start competing with each other, driving the prices down.
You're describing how tariffs are traditionally used, which is you put a specific tariff on a specific market, and that's how you augment the market to shape what you want to do. But that's not what Trump is suggesting. Trump is proposing a broad tariff on all products across all industries, and that is extraordinarily challenging because not every market is prepared for a big increase in cost. There are a lot of products that are primarily not made in America, and the infrastructure to build it all in America does not exist. So we're relying on these companies to put a heavy amount of investment in U.S. production, and that doesn't happen overnight. That takes a lot of time and a shit ton of money. And time and money equals higher prices.
Tariffs can also be used to incentivize U.S. companies to start sourcing their products and materials domestically rather than importing them. And by doing that, they can avoid the whole cost of the tariff and then save money on shipping and logistics, which would also bring prices down.
The problem is it won't actually save U.S. companies money because buying U.S. sourced products are more expensive than buying foreign sourced products. So you go one way, you hit a tariff. You go the other way, you hit an increased cost of goods. Either direction you go, you're hitting higher prices.
I'll give you an analogy. Let's imagine there's two bakeries in a town. One bakery is local and one imports their bread from another city. If the town places a tax on the imported bread, the local bakery could start producing more bread more efficiently to attract customers. Therefore, with more customers and more product being sold, they could lower the prices, benefiting the townspeople.
Again, this is a specific example where you're using a targeted tariff. A broad tariff does not apply to this because, yeah, some markets, what you just described could happen, and in other markets, it could be a complete epic meltdown. A broad 25% tariff is going to unquestionably disrupt a lot of industries, and that disruption will increase prices. Now, what you're describing essentially is a long-term play to try to make the US a domestic producer of most things, which is on paper a smart idea, but when you get into the details of it, it's extraordinarily difficult to put together, extraordinarily expensive, and puts the burden on the backs of consumers until it's all complete. Building that infrastructure is going to take a lot of time and a lot of money, and the other element of this is that American labor is always going to be so much more expensive than foreign labor. So those two factors alone are never going to make this a cost-effective strategy. In the end, it's a very risky situation that only potentially provides a long-term benefit but guarantees a short-term problem. And since the inflation of 2022 and 2023 dramatically increased the baseline cost of goods, we do not need any more inflation.
But hey, I'm just a dumb Trump supporter. What do I know?
You're obviously not dumb, but you're definitely misinformed on the broad effect of non-specific blanket tariffs, but hopefully now you understand that it's not as simple as bring it to America, we'll make it, it's going to be cheaper. That's not how it's going to go.
One thing that this tariffs nonsense has really shown me is just how alienated most Americans are from the products that they consume day in, day out. They genuinely have zero idea the production process that goes into, like, the vast majority of their little consumer habits. Like, there are genuinely people, voters, who have the understanding that, what do you mean? Food comes from the grocery store, right? Like, the takeaway when you hear the price of an iPhone could jump up to $100,000 per phone if it were wholly made in the United States should really be, oh my God, the rest of the world is directly subsidizing the American consumer lifestyle. Someone pointed out, oh, the tariffs on Madagascar are going to radically increase the price of vanilla, which will have massive knock-on effects on the rest of the market. And people were like, what do you mean? We'll just grow our own vanilla. Naturally, those people got absolutely schooled on how impossible that is and how demanding vanilla cultivation really is. But the lesson there is that the only reason we can have bottles of vanilla extract for like $5 a pop is because the global neoliberal order has turned the global periphery in like countries like Madagascar into export-oriented economies. Are these tariffs a good policy? No. But the prosperity that Americans enjoyed under free trade is because of the exploitation of the global south. And that's actually more problematic. To the point where Americans don't even know that in order for them to have $5 t-shirts and caramel macchiatos, there are hundreds of millions of people in the global south, faceless hordes to most of you, who had to suffer lives of poverty and exploitation and death. That is the original sin of the American economic system, and until we solve this problem of alienation, of people not knowing where their stuff comes from and who made it, we're just going to be squabbling over different modes of exploitation.
Alright, as you have seen those clips, let's have a real discussion about it. What we are really dealing with here is one word: tariff. Now, for a lot of people that sounds technical, but it's actually simple. When a country places tariff, it's basically a tax on imported goods. So when products comes in from outside, they get taxed. Sound good at first, right? Protect local businesses, but here is the part people don't always think about. That cost doesn't just disappear. It gets passed on to businesses and eventually the everyday consumer. So what happens? Price goes up, material costs more, products cost more, businesses struggle to balance it, and then people start noticing, why is everything getting expensive? That's when the reality starts to it. This is where it gets deeper because now people are connecting policy decision, real life consequences. And that moment, that realization, that's powerful because for many black communities and individuals, understanding how system affects daily life has always been part of the conversation. There is a long history of adapting to economic pressure, navigating rising costs, and building despite challenges. So when topic like tariff comes up, it's not just theory, it's about impact. And that awareness of how does this actually affect us, that's something that has always mattered. So when more people start asking those same questions, it shows a shift towards deeper understanding. Let's be honest, most people don't study policy deeply. Let's go off headlines, promises, and quick explanation. But when the result shows up in your life, that's when it becomes real. This topic is blowing up because it's relatable. People everywhere are feeling higher prices, tighter the budget, and economic pressure. So when they connect that to policy, the conversation spread fast. Let's zoom out for a second. This isn't just about tariff, it's about understanding system, making informed informed decision, and thinking long term impact, because short term idea can affect long term effect. And at the end of the day, this isn't just about who is right or wrong, it's about learning, awareness, and growth. Because when people understand how things really works, they move differently. Now let me ask you, did you already understand how tariff work, or did you just learn something new today? Be honest with this and drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's have a real conversation about it. And if you want more real breakdown like this, tap subscribe button, because we are just reacting. We are fighting things out together. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all in my next video.